Welcome back, storytellers. To those of who've been here before, thank you for returning to this quiet space. And if you're new here, a special welcome. This is a channel built on true, raw stories of human experience, love, loss, regret, and the moments that change us forever. Today's story isn't just a memory. It's a ghost that knocked on a door years later. It's about a marriage that ended on a cold December night over what seemed like nothing, and the chilling, unexpected echo of that same night, years later, when a knock at the door brought the past back to ask for a second chance that could never really be given. Before we begin, I want to extend an invitation to you. This community grows through your voices. Every story shared in the comments, every email sent, becomes a part of this shared tapestry of human experience. If you have a story of your own, a moment that haunts you, a love that shaped you, a choice that defined you, please share it with us. Your story could be the one that helps someone else feel a little less alone. You'll find the email for submissions in the description below. Now, find a comfortable space. Settle in. This is the last knock. It was a cold December evening when I watched my marriage shatter into 1,000 pieces. And it all started with a party. You know that feeling? When the air in the room just changes. It gets heavy, like a storm is coming, but there's no thunder, no lightning. Just this awful, silent pressure building between two people who swore they'd love each other forever. We'd been married for 3 years. 3 years of shared mornings, inside jokes, a life being built. But that night was the beginning of the end. And I want to tell you this story, the whole story, because it doesn't end where you think it does. Years later, on another cold December night, a knock on my door would bring it all back, and force me to face a question I'd buried long ago. What if the person who broke your heart comes back? That night, the fight wasn't explosive. It was surgical. Precise. A quiet, venomous thing. She had an invitation, a college reunion. Her friends. A night out. I don't think you should go, I'd said, leaning in the kitchen doorway. She didn't look up from fastening her earring. Why? Because you'll be lonely? No. Because we haven't spent a single night together in 3 weeks. We're ships in the night, Sarah. We're roommates. I think we need tonight. Just us. To remember what us even is. She finally looked at me, and her eyes weren't warm. They were defensive. So I'm supposed to cancel on my friends because you've decided tonight is us night? That's not fair. That's controlling. It's not control, it's fear, I said, the admission slipping out. I'm afraid we're losing us. She picked up her small black purse, a sharp, final gesture. I'm not canceling my plans because you're feeling insecure. The word insecure hung in the air, a deliberate poison. She walked to the door. I'll be back late. Don't wait up. The door clicked shut. Not a slam, just a soft, definitive click. That was worse. It meant this wasn't a passionate outburst, it was a choice. And in that moment, standing alone in our too-quiet apartment, I knew. This wasn't about a party. The party was just the spark. The fuel had been piling up for months. The missed dinners. The texts that went unanswered for hours. The conversations that died before they began. The slow, quiet erosion of we into you and me. That night, her walking out that door, was the final grain of sand that broke the camel's back. I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room chair, watching the streetlights paint patterns on the wall, listening to the silence. It had a sound, that silence. A high, ringing hum of absence. She came home at 4 a.m. I heard her key fumble in the lock, heard her careful, slightly unsteady steps on the hardwood. She peeked into the living room, surprised to see me awake. Hey, she whispered, a faint, happy glow on her from the night out. I didn't yell. I felt eerily calm. Vacant. I'm done, Sarah. She froze. The glow vanished. What? I can't do this anymore. I'm empty. I gestured around the dark room. This is just a space we share. It's not a home anymore. You're breaking up with me? Over a party? Her voice cracked with disbelief. It's not about the party, I said, my voice rising for the first time, but it was a hollow sound. It's about you choosing everything else, every single time. Your work, your friends, your freedom, everything comes before me. Before us. I'm an afterthought in my own marriage. The tears came then. Real, panicked tears. She pleaded. She promised. She said she'd change, she'd cut back at work, she'd go to counseling, she'd do anything. She reached for me, but I flinched away. The connection, the magnetic pull that had always drawn me to her, it was gone. Snapped. I felt nothing but a cold, vast detachment. I'd already mourned us, right there in that chair while she was out laughing with her friends. There was nothing left to salvage. I packed a bag that night. Left. The divorce was a bleak, procedural affair a few months later. And just like that, a 3-year chapter of my life was closed, stamped failed. I did what you're supposed to do. I moved to a new city, a coastal town where the air smelled of salt, not memories. I started a new job. I dated, casually. I built a life. A good one, even. Quiet. Predictable. Safe. I convinced myself I had moved on. I rarely thought of her, except in the deep, quiet hours of the night, when my mind would wander to a phantom life, to the what-ifs. What if I'd been more patient? What if she'd come home early that night? What if we'd tried harder? But morning would always come, and I'd lock those thoughts away again. She became a memory. A bittersweet, distant song I used to know the words to. Until... years later. Another December. The same sharp, metallic cold in the air. It was a Friday night. I was reading, a fire crackling in the fireplace, perfectly content in my solitude. Then, a knock. Firm. Unmistakable. My heart, traitorously, jumped. No one visits unannounced here. Not at 9 p.m. on a freezing night. I opened the door, and the world tilted. There she was. Sarah. Standing on my porch, snowflakes catching in her hair, illuminated by the yellow porch light. Time had been kind to her, but it had also changed her. The defiant spark in her eyes was gone, replaced by a profound, weary softness. She looked regretful. "Hi, James," she said, her voice barely a whisper, carried away on the frozen air. I couldn't speak. My brain short-circuited. This wasn't happening. "Can I come in? Just for a minute? It's freezing." She offered a small, fragile smile. Wordlessly, I stepped aside. She walked past me into the warmth, shedding her coat. She glanced around my living room, at my books, my furniture, the evidence of a life lived without her. A life she knew nothing about. She didn't sit. She turned to face me, clutching her hands together. "I'm sorry," she blurted out. No small talk. No preamble. Just the raw, urgent truth. "I am so sorry. For everything. For that night. For every night I chose wrong. For not fighting for you when you walked out. I was proud, and I was scared, and I was so stupid." The words hummed between us, thick and heavy. I just stared, my old wounds throbbing back to life. "I've played that night over in my head 1,000 times, she continued, her eyes glistening. "I hear myself saying those awful words to you. Insecure, and I want to scream at that version of me. You weren't insecure. You were alone. And I made you that way." A tear finally escaped, tracing a path down her cheek. "You were the best thing that ever happened to me, James. And I let you go. I've regretted it every single day since." The silence in the room was deafening, broken only by the pop of the fire. This was the apology I had craved in my deepest pain years ago. Now, it felt like a historical document read aloud, true, significant, but from a past that no longer existed. Sarah, I began, my voice rough. Thank you for saying that. It means a lot to hear it. I took a deep breath, grounding myself in the present, in this room, in the man I was now. But I've moved on. My life here, this is my life now. She nodded rapidly, wiping her cheek, trying to compose herself. She'd expected this answer, I could tell, but hoping it cost her something anyway. I know, she whispered. I can see that. And I'm glad. Truly, I am glad you're okay. She looked at me, really looked, her gaze soaking in my face one last time. I just needed you to know. I needed to say it to your face. I never stopped loving you. I just learned how to love you properly about 5 years too late. She moved toward the door, picking up her coat. She paused with her hand on the knob. Be happy, James. You deserve it. And then she was gone, swallowed back into the cold December night from which she'd appeared. I closed the door slowly. The familiar warmth of my house settled around me again, but it felt different. The air felt clearer. Lighter. She had come carrying the ghost of our past, seeking absolution, and in looking her in the eye and speaking my truth, I had finally, truly, laid that ghost to rest. I didn't wonder about the what-ifs anymore. The path not taken was just that, a path overgrown and faded, leading to a country I no longer wished to visit. We were two different people now. The young, heartbroken man in that empty apartment and the defiant woman who left him, they were gone. All that was left was this quiet understanding, this late-arriving peace, on a cold December night. Sometimes, closure doesn't look like a reunion. Sometimes, it looks like a goodbye, finally said properly, years after you thought the story was already over. And sometimes, that's exactly what you need to finally turn the page.